You could be larger than life, bigger than the world, living out the hopes and dreams of every boy and every girl. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You could have all you ever wanted, shoot the moon and reach for Mars. You know you could.
So hello and welcome to Business Matters. So just off the stage of the Startup Festival where you delivered your keynote speech, how are you feeling? How did it feel being here today?
It's fantastic. It's a great place to be. This is the first time I'm in Malta, and everyone is very friendly, and it's a booming island. So I think it makes sense for a festival like this to exist. Yeah, pleasure.
And how have you been finding Malta so far?
It's a great place. I've talked to many people, and it seems like there is a real nice energy in the startup business and as well as the community. It's great. I think I originally come from Iran, and long time ago, and I grew up in an area where I didn't have much to be able to do what I do today. So if you would have told me years ago that you would go to moon, I would believe that more than ending up working in the visual effects industry, right? So I'm a believer that everything everywhere has a start, and I'm hoping that the film industry and the visual effects and the animation industry in Malta starts to grow and becomes as interesting, as beautiful as the island itself.
That's very great. Thank you for loving our country so much. So you've mentioned that where you come from, obviously you didn't have a clue that you would end up here. So would you tell us a bit about your journey, how you started in this career and how now you've gotten to obviously being an Emmy Award winner?
Absolutely. So I grew up in Iran, in south of Iran, and my dad bought me my first computer. It was an Amiga 600. And I remember, this is a story I always tell, I think I was 11 or 12 when I watched the very first Independence Day. It's a very, very important film with director Roland Emmerich. And I used to tell my dad that I'm going to work with this guy one day. And as I said, this was so ambitious. This was so out of reach, impossible to think about, right? But yet, about 20 years later, I worked on the Independence Day 2 with director Roland Emmerich directly. And this was a very, very hard journey. I went to Russia and I studied music first. I'm an actual concert pianist. And I met my wife. She's from Germany, and I moved to Germany afterwards. And I started the visual effects again after I finished my music degree, and I wanted to give it a try, and it worked out. And I never touched the piano again. So I worked really hard, and I think what was really important is that at a time that I was learning visual effects, talking 1999, 2000, we didn't have internet, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have all of these possibilities. And I must say there is something about not having access to what gives you the success. And I was so eager, like a bird in a cage, coming out of Iran. I was so eager to learn. And the amount of energy it would have taken me to learn a software back in the year 2000 was like 100 times more than today. You again had no internet, no easy access to the material. So I think that having lived in Iran and really wanted to get that chance, and the chance was given to me when I was in Germany, and I gave it my 300% attention, worked really hard. And I was lucky to end up in a company called Pixelmundo. Now it's one of the largest visual effects studios in the world, but at a time, they really needed fresh blood for their new studio. And I was right there at the right time, at the right place, and I got an opportunity. And I worked very hard the last 20 years. I still, even though I've gone through this whole process, I've worked on many, many groundbreaking projects, worked with many, many amazing filmmakers, won an Emmy for Game of Thrones season 8, but still, even now, I dedicate an hour of my day to learning new material, new software, and I keep updating myself because the visual effects industry, as I mentioned, it is science, and you'll need to keep yourself up to date. It's like a teacher that needs to be up to date with the students, because otherwise you're out of the game, right? So yeah, long journey, but I'm happy to be here now.
So you've mentioned obviously that it's learning and working hard. So to anyone watching who might be wanting to get into this industry, would that be your advice to obviously just keep learning and
Absolutely. I think the biggest advice I can give is consistency. Consistency in a way that if you really love this profession, if you want to be in the film industry, if you want to get to somewhere you feel and you think it's impossible, like I've been there myself, as I mentioned, and there are moments where everyone's going to tell you it's never going to happen in Malta. You have to go abroad, and this is just far from your reach. I don't believe in that. I believe in if you have a dream, if you work hard, and if you're consistent in pursuing this dream, it will come true, right? I know it sounds very sentimental, but I have experienced that firsthand. So yes, consistency is really, really important. As I mentioned, for the past 25 years, I have consistently spend time on a daily basis to learn and to update myself and to be in sync with the technology. The technology is growing really, really fast. Your knowledge from 3 years ago is not anymore relevant. It's obsolete. So you need to be up to date, and that's really, really crucial for anyone that is perhaps living in an area that is far from the industry, right? So hopefully the industry also blooms in Malta in regards to visual effects and animation. But nothing is impossible. Just needs hard work and consistency.
and obviously, I mean, throughout your career, you've had a lot of projects which were under your guidance. Do you have a process that you usually go through? Is there something that you always do, or do you approach every project differently?
So there is a systematic way of working on the visual effects projects. There is a guideline on how we approach, but creatively speaking and technically speaking, every project is different. Every director is different. Every filmmaker is different, and each of them require a different type of attention, right? But generally, we start with reading the script very early on with the filmmakers, and we are there to guide them on how could they shoot this. What part of this should be practical? What part of this should be on camera? And what part of this we should rather add later, both for cost reasons, but also for creative reasons. Today, anything is possible in visual effects. 20 years ago, we had to be very careful. But now, anything, any character, any conditions, any environment can be produced in visual effects. So we'll need to guide them on how they can shoot the film, what locations they should choose, what lighting they should take, how can they shoot it that we can effectively and efficiently put the visual effects later in the post-production. We go through that process, we take the script, it's a process called breakdown, where we break down the script into components and assets and shots, and there's going to be a cost attached to all of this, and then we'll go into a journey of finding out which company in the world is specialized in what part. There are some companies in the world that are very, very known for doing amazing environment, like DNIC, for doing amazing creatures, like DNIC, and so on and so on. So once we narrowed down the companies that are best suited to do the work, then we go into this process of post-production, where you basically go through this collaborative process with the filmmakers and a back and forth with them to establish the look, the visuals. And it's a very rewarding process, but also a very challenging, and can be very frustrating, depending on whom you're working with. Yeah.
And maybe on a more personal level rather than a professional one, is there a project that you've worked on which has been really special to you, or which you keep coming back to?
Absolutely. I think the one that I have personally, it was a dream project for me to work on, was the final season of Game of Thrones, because I love the series. It was one of the sort of genre-defining projects that changed TV forever, in regards to scope, budget, but not just technically, also creatively. It was just a whole different level. So when I got the opportunity to work on the final season, it was a massive pressure because it
In
was
fact-
the last.
In fact, I was
Last-
about to say it's probably a lot of pressure for you, but
absolutely.
obviously you've got, from a
Absolutely.
technical perspective, but also you've got the fans who've loved this series for so long and who are just waiting.
100%. You know, any other projects that I've worked on, you know, even the award winnings, really, really important ones, you know, you don't go outside and, you know, rarely you have a project that anyone knows and anyone relates to and anyone has seen part of it. And Game of Thrones was like that. So it's interesting, when we worked on the project, we had two group of people. The first group, you know, really, really wanted to work on the project. You know, they would, you know, come to the studio and said if they don't work on the project, they will leave. Like, they will quit. It would threaten us. And we had a second group which they would not want to work on the project because they didn't want to have any spoilers. They didn't want to know how the season 8 finishes, right? Yeah. So this was a very special project for me.
No, and I mean, I think obviously when you're working on a project, I think especially when it's like Game of Thrones, I can understand where they're coming from. It's obviously it's the honor of having worked on it, but then
Of
once
course.
you see it on screen, you already know what's coming. So it's
Yeah.
like you're spoiling your own.
Correct.
Yeah. And from the projects that you've worked on and with the teams that you're building, because obviously you're always working with different people, is there kind of a takeaway, a lesson that you kind of learned maybe from the beginning, something that you didn't expect when you'd be working with all these people, something that you've learned through the process?
Absolutely. This is a very good question. So as I mentioned earlier, I graduated as a concert pianist, and as part of that process, we also learned how to conduct. And ironically, I thought I will never use that in my career, but being a visual effects supervisor, it is the closest thing to be a conductor. I work with a large group of people. They come from different backgrounds, they speak different languages, they have different beliefs, different religions, and the goal is to conduct this group and have them put together something beautiful on a blank canvas. It's like a conductor that, you know, takes noise and converts it into beautiful harmony, right? So, and what really the only thing that works the best when you're going through this process that you really absolutely need beyond the technology and the creative process is the collaboration. Filmmaking is a highly collaborative process, you know, and that's also the sort of signature of many of these amazing filmmakers that we had the opportunity to work with. That it's not about them, it's about the collaboration with the team, and it's about enabling every single person in the team to be able to do their best and through the guideline that we can give. So yes, I think collaboration and working together, and again the consistency in pursuing that dream from the director is the key to having success.
And I think one of the questions that you're most asked, obviously you've done all this work. What does it feel like the moment that you realize that your work is recognized through winning an Emmy? Because obviously it must have been, I think, a great experience for you. So what did that feel like for you?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, I remember when I went on the stage to accept the award. Of course, you do that on behalf of the team, and on
Yes.
behalf of the studio, on behalf of every single person who spent day and night working on the project. So it is again a collaborative effort, and it's always a pleasure to serve as the captain. But for me, looking back at my past and knowing that there was a time where I thought this, you know, I will never have the chance to do what I love to do when I was back in Iran, and it was surreal to see that I've come that far and I was able to swim against the waves, fight against all the odds over the past 2.5 decades, and to get where I am, to be able to collaborate with some of the finest filmmakers in the world. And again, this is the testimony to don't pass on your dreams. Stay consistent, and if you work hard, and of course it needs to be something that is achievable to begin with, but if it is achievable, and if you work hard, it is doable. So yeah, to me, it was a great reward for all of those years that I stayed awake at night till midnight, learning and learning and learning and learning to be able to get better and better in what I do.
I think that's an amazing takeaway, an amazing way to wrap close this conversation. Obviously, encouraging people to always just keep working hard towards their dreams, and we look forward, obviously, to seeing everyone who's listening in achieving their dreams, whether that be in filmmaking or in any other industry. Thank you so much for your time with us.
Thanks. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you.